Sometimes it's given about 3 or 4 sessions altogether, especially when kids are involved and teens are involved. As good evening, how you doing? Welcome back. Thank you very much for coming. So tonight we're going to be discussing one of the most fundamental, I think the most fundamental topic in all of Judaism, as brought down and brought up in this week's parsha. And Moshe Rabbeinu reminds us of all the curses that could happen to Bnei Israel, to the Jewish people, while we're in exile. He promises this on one fundamental principle, and that is Tachat Asher Lo Avadetem, is all this will happen because you didn't serve Hashem with happiness, because Simcha Utuv Lavav, out of happiness and gladness of the heart. The commentators note that Moshe wasn't telling us that bad things will happen, the curses will happen, God forbid not to say bad things, but the curses will fall upon us because we didn't serve, but rather because we didn't do it happily. So today we're going to be exploring happiness somewhat. There is a 6-week course coming up, beginning in Sukkot, which is much more expansive, looking into the nature of happiness. And the question is probably one of the most difficult questions we could be asked. Ready?
All yours.
Question is, how are you doing? How are you doing? See, it's a difficult question, especially here in America. When you think about it, the question of how you're doing is somewhat a rhetorical question. When somebody approaches and says, how are you doing? Do you really think they are asking you, how are you doing? Do they want to know how you're doing? Or is it sort of passing along and somebody's just passing you by? Yeah, how you doing? Especially in New York. How you doing? No, how you doing? It's formality.
Do you want to tell them how you do?
Yeah, if you want to tell them, if you really want to tell them how you do, you have to run up to them to the end of the block and catch them and stop and say, oh, wait, you asked me a question, let me answer you an answer. And they will look at you as though you're annoying them because it was rhetorical. There's even a more difficult, asking ourselves how we're doing. Much harder to do. Much harder to ask ourselves how we're doing because sometimes we're afraid that we might answer ourselves. I know there are people who try to flee that question and are afraid to ask themselves how they're doing. But again, being that this is the end of the year, when we ought to take a good look at ourselves, we need to ask ourselves how we're doing. More, especially because this week's Parsha, again, is one of the principles that emerges out of this is how important happiness is. And the obvious question that we could ask ourselves is, am I happy? Am I really happy? It's somewhat of a difficult question because, from my observation, most people don't understand what happiness is. When you ask most people, do you want to be happy? Of course, everybody says, of course I do. Who doesn't want to be happy? Actually, not everyone openly wants to be happy. There are people who love wallowing in their own misery. And when you give them the option of being happy, they'll find every reason why not. They might do subconsciously. They might be attracting different level of chaoses, but when given the ability to emerge and break through that chaos, they'll find something else because it's not easy to be with myself. I think we said the last time, the famous poet says, I drink in order to deal with negative people, that includes myself. What's that called? The euphemism? So the question is, and we're going to be looking at today, are we happy? Are we happy? And I'm going to ask you a very, very easy, and I want you to write it down right now. I'm going to ask you an easy question, but it might be somewhat difficult if you never thought along those lines. Right now, in your life, as is, what do you need in order to be happy? I want you to write it down. or out there in Facebook land, I want you to think about it. What exactly do you need right now in order to be happy? Okay, everybody wrote?
So easy for the kids.
Yeah, you know what? It is easier for the kids.
Actually, no, I don't know.
It seems easier for the kids. You know, there's a very famous teaching from the, I believe, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. I believe in his name that the difference between adults and children, why children seemingly so much happier than adults, is because adults much rather than being right than happy, while children much rather be happy than right. So there are no underlying principles. The child just moves on and just is able to take things at. But the question still stands: what exactly do we need in order to be happy? I see somebody over there on Facebook wrote health. Okay, very important. Health is very, very important. Anybody wants to share their answer? What's your name?
Family.
Okay, so what's your name is family?
Oh, my name is Orly.
Orly. Okay, Orly. Orly, what do you need in order to be happy?
Family.
Family. Orly needs family in order to be happy. Okay. Anything else? If that's all you write, that's all you wrote. What's your name?
Gabriella.
Gabriella. What do you need in order to be happy, Gabriella?
I wrote the same thing as Orly.
Okay. Family as well. I see somebody over there on Facebook is writing happy family. Oh boy, a happy family. It's the make or break. Happy family definitely contributes to happiness. But I have to challenge to say that there's something even deeper than that. Yes.
I wrote friends and family.
Friends and family, okay. Friends and family, very, very important. Some people actually prefer friends over family. You don't know the line in the poem, prefer a feast of friends to a giant family, right? Yes?
I wrote Hashem.
Hashem, you need God in your life. Okay, very, very important. Very important. Yes?
Hashem, I always know that Hashem's guiding me.
To know that Hashem is watching you, for sure, this contributes to happiness. What do you think? An idea. Peace of mind. All right?
That's what I wrote in my head.
This is what you wrote in your head. A peace of mind, all right?
Content, peace of mind.
Content. To being content is very, very important to being happy.
Clarity.
Huh?
Clarity.
Clarity. Yes?
Peace.
Huh?
Peace.
Peace. World peace, inner peace. What are we talking about?
Like,
Piece of cake?
like
Nobody
nobody
fighting.
like,
Nobody fighting around you.
yeah, and like everybody has peace.
If everyone had peace. All right. So let me ask you a question. Remind me of your name again? Adiel?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a question, Adiel. And until world peace can be achieved, are you not capable of being happy? What if your family never gets its act together and it never happened? Are you not capable of being happy? And God forbid, good and healthy years. And what if, God forbid, we're dealing with a turbulent year? Or God forbid, our health suffers, or somebody else who we're very close to a health suffer. Are we not capable of being happy then? See, if Torah is premised, and Judaism is premised upon the ability to serve God with happiness, it means in every single situation. There must be an underlying talent, ability, strength that is necessary, or an element that is necessary in order to be happy. And this actually is accentuated by a very interesting study that came out not too long ago that basically analyzed our generation, this generation, and everybody here could admit that this generation has more materially than any other generation that came before it. Do you know that you have more today available to you as far as material and even spiritual knowledge and material welfare and comforts than all the previous generations combined. And yet a study showed something remarkable. We are 10 times more likely to experience depression today than we did in the 1960s. People are 10 times more likely to be depressed than we were in all the other generations. Why is it? We have more than everyone together as far as health is concerned, as far as material is concerned, as far as everything. Why are we more prone to depression? More so. A shocking study, and this really pertains to you. Today's depression starts as early as 14 years old and much more acute by girls than even boys. Much more. In other words, it used to be that people would first experience, if they did some level of depression, late 30s, perhaps later on in the 20s, but today as early as 14 years old. You know what depression is? I mean, it's very simple. The loss of pleasure, the loss of motivation, the loss of ambition. Just living life, going through the motion of living life and not really feeling it anymore. And even more dangerous, not wanting to feel it anymore. Resigning from life on one level or another. What is it about our generation that heightened the level of depression and so sucked the ability to be happy? Technology.
Disconnected. People are disconnected.
Because we are more disconnected. For sure, this connection has a very strong agent to happiness. That's correct.
Because our desire for convenience just led to more convenience.
Because our desire to convenience. Actually, that's so correct. If you think about it, think that just 60 years ago, 70 years ago, there was no air conditioning. Refrigeration was not what it is today. They had ice boxes. Anybody remember the honeymooners? Ice boxes. Sickness was much more rampant. Right? In order to be able to send in mail, you would have to actually write an entire letter, go to the post office, send it, and wait how long?
And hope it makes it.
Hope it makes it. You know, they won't be lost in the mail. And you would have to wait. We have so many more conveniences. So much more conveniences. What is it that's missing? So let's go back. What exactly do we need in order to be happy? What exactly do we need? Yeah.
People that love you.
We need to be loved, for sure. There's a very interesting study from Dr. Josh Anker. He's a professor in Harvard. He wrote a book called The Happiness Advantage. And he asked this very question. What exactly do we need to be happy? What is it that human beings need to be happy? You would think if happiness was about achieving something, about buying something, acquiring something, all of us should be happy. Everyone should be happy. Who here did not achieve something in their life? Who here? You graduated 5th grade, now you go to 6th, right? Yeah. You go to 8th grade, right? You should be ecstatic. You should be so hunky-dory ecstatic. You have a car? You have a car? Imagine that. You have clothing, right? You have food. You have running water. You have air conditioning in the summertime. Heat in the wintertime. We should be ecstatic. But Josh Anker says that's not happiness. Those things do not bring about happiness. Yes?
Happiness isn't like you're better off without it, because
happiness comes from like the heart, not like from like.
Oh, now you're coming closer.
It's what you have. It's not like. It's not what you have that makes you happy. It's what like. What you do that makes you happy. What you say.
You're coming much closer.
Your actions.
Much closer. Much closer.
Attitude.
The Midrash. Oh, very good, Gabriella. Right?
Yeah.
The Midrash in Midrash Kohelet says a person does not die. The person will not leave this world even fulfilling half of his material desire. Because if you have 100, now you want 200. You've got 200, you want 4. You drove this car, now you want a better car. You have this, you always want more. Human beings have a constant need. We constantly need. We're needy people. We're needy entities. No matter what you give us, it's never going to be enough. So what exactly does make up happiness? Yeah.
Did that element exist, do you think, when people had a lot less? They always, even when they had less, they still wanted more and more and more? Or is it because we got a taste of more that we want more?
The more we taste, the more we want. That's our nature. That's our nature. I remember being on the diet, and it was a very, very rigid diet. And I was thinking to myself, if only I could have an extra 2 ounces of meat. I was only allowed 3.5 ounces of meat. Only 2. That's all I'm asking. A little sliver more. That's all. I said, I can't wait. When I get off this diet, I'm not going to go back to the same way. I'm going to an extra ounce of fish. You know what it is? The more you allow yourself, the more you want. The more you indulge yourself, the more you need. Right? That's our nature. That's the animal nature. The more you feed it, the more it wants. You ever seen a baby? Anybody here seen a baby tiger? Ever seen a baby tiger? You know what a baby tiger looks like?
Yes.
What does a baby tiger look like? A baby tiger looks like a beautiful kitten. Ever seen a small tiger looks like this? You start feeding it and feeding it, what happens? It grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. Within a few months, it's a full-fledged tiger. And what you fed it a week ago, a month ago, is no longer enough. You've indulged it too much. It grew too much. Now you feed that small sliver that you fed it a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Oh, no. It's going to eat you. The more we indulge our animal, the more it wants.
We're very good at turning wants into needs.
And it becomes our needs. We convince ourselves it becomes our needs. We convince that without these things, we won't be able to live. We don't have a normal life. We spoke about many times practicing impulse control. You know why? Because indulging our physical desires does not produce happiness. It's not.
They have a short shelf life.
Because they're only as good as while you have it. The best meal, if I had this cake right now, how long will the flavor remain in my mouth?
3 seconds.
3 seconds. What happens afterwards?
You're going to want more.
I'm going to want, why? Because it's gone already.
Right.
It's gone already. And I've already tasted sugar, I want more.
But it doesn't taste as good after 3 bites.
You start feeling more guilty, and yet you can't stop because you're already on the road. So practicing impulse control and discipline as a path to happiness in itself is very important. It's counterintuitive because in the culture we live in, they're telling you just do everything, try everything. That leads to disaster.
The knowledge of self-control is happiness.
It's not happiness in itself. It's definitely a path. Very interesting. There is a documentary called Happy, and the documenters went all around the world and analyzed different societies rich societies, poor societies, religious societies, and atheist societies, all kinds of societies. They went to the tribes in South America. They went and they wanted to find out what makes people happy. What makes people happy? Here's what they came up with. I'm just going to use it for a second. See this right here? See, this is your life right here. Okay, this is your life. When you get a promotion, when you move up in grades, your bat mitzvah, you got a gift, you went out with your friends, something went right in your life, it spikes upwards. Now, even though it spikes upwards, what's going to happen? Eventually, what goes up must come down. Right? Even a great celebration ends at a certain point. You bought a new car, great smell, you know that new smell? How long does that last? A month, 2 months, and you get used to it. You got a new phone? You're so excited. You get used to it. You just got married? So exciting? You get used to it. What goes up will come down. And the same thing with going down. God forbid, an illness, demotion, God forbid a loss, or anything to that extent, it'll spike downwards. But things have a way of working themselves out, and people move onwards. Life goes on. So this is what they found out. We're going to see how this is now only touching upon an element that Judaism spoke about thousands of years ago. Happiness is not event-based. It's not related to any events. Happiness is not event-related. It's not about what happens to you.
It's a state of mind.
So what is happiness?
Mommy,
Happiness is the ability to respond to our life correctly in a consistent manner. Again, happiness is the ability to respond to our lives correctly in a consistent manner. In other words, if you respond to your life as is, in the best possible way, and we spoke about many times the difference between reacting to life and responding to life. You react to problems, you respond to dilemmas. Problems time you respond to dilemmas and resolve, and you resolve the dilemmas and make them pathways to life, within life. But what is happiness? Happiness is the ability to respond to your life correctly in a consistent manner. There lies a very big difference between two different elements within ourselves. Happiness and joy. What's the difference between joy and happiness? In Hebrew, it's simcha and sason. What's the difference between being joyful and being happy? See, here in America, if you ask most people what happiness is, they confuse it with joy.
State of mind versus feeling.
Joy, as David HaMelech says, Sas anochi al imras picha kemotza shel harav, in chapter 119 of Tehillim, says David HaMelech, I rejoice, I experience joy over the words of your Torah as somebody who finds great treasures. What is joy? Joy is when you find a treasure. Win your lotto. What is it? Joy is a spike of euphoria. Endorphins. Beautiful. Everything's hunky-dory. I'm elated. I'm up in the world. I'm on cloud 9. Most people mistake happiness for joy. They chase joy as though it's happiness. But again, happiness is not joy, because joy requires all the elements to come together. Everything to be working out perfectly right now. I need to be getting a good grade. My marriage needs to be 100% good. My health has to be good. Everything has to be good. I need to have a celebration. That's joy. What is happiness? Happiness is the ability to respond to your life correctly in a consistent manner. Whatever it is now, however it is now, you need to respond to it. Because if you're going to be looking at your life saying to yourself, why isn't my life like this, and why are my parents like this, or my siblings like this, my wife or my husband like this, my children like this, my boss like this, that will detract from your ability to respond. Maybe you have to think, why isn't it, as far as what do I do about it? But saying I'll be happy when, and you fill in the blank, when this will happen, when this will happen, when this person will come eye-to-eye to me, when my boss will understand me, my wife will understand me, my husband understands me, you're never going to be happy. Another tidbit for this interesting documentary, again, it's in line so much with Torah. If happiness was a pie, 40% of our ability to be happy stems from our parents. 40%. Either genetics, epigenetics, we spoke about this before, we'll speak about it again. In other words, things that we inherited, behaviors and responses, reactions that we inherited from our parents, from their life. And there's a lot to be said about this, but this is beyond the scope of this class. Acquired wisdom, what you watch your parents deal with their lives. Very interesting study. I remember reading it about 15 years ago. Children who are put into, babies who are put into papoose. You know what a papoose is? You know what a papoose is, right? Mother wears a papoose. She puts a baby in. She's holding him or her, right, in the papoose. She can carry him. Children who are facing their parents develop quicker than children who are facing outwards. Why? Because children get their cues of what and how to deal with life from watching their parents' reactions and responses. 40% of our ability to be happy is correlated with our parents. The next field, the next sliver of the pie, money, work, promotion, demotion, and all that, material welfare. How much would you say takes up, material welfare? Job security or insecurity, how much of a pie it takes? How much?
20.
20? Jonathan, what do you think? 5? More, Jen?
Can you repeat the question?
How
Maybe
much
like
of the happiness pie does material security, job security, material welfare occupy, take up?
in actuality or
Yeah.
in your head?
No,
Like your head.
all reality begins in your head. You determine reality based on what's going on in your mind. So, how much?
Maybe about 30%. I don't know.
10%. 10% of our ability to be happy or happiness is 10% material welfare. And although here in the Western culture, we are trained from youth, from babies, to pursue that 10% as though it's 100%. We're told from the get-go, if you get a good job, you're going to be able to get a nice house and a nice car, and you'll be happy, and then live ever happy ever after. 10%.
That dictates joy, not happiness.
Huh?
That dictates joy, not happiness.
Which leaves us with another 50%. So 40% is our parents, 10% is our material welfare. What's the next 50%? The next 50% is the way that we respond to or react to the first 50%. Everything that was given to us in our lives. how we respond to our lives. Basically, that's what makes or breaks happiness. If we respond to our lives, whatever they are, you got a good mark on your test or a bad mark on your test. You got the job, you didn't. How do you respond to this? What do you do about this? That's a make or break of happiness. Where does that come from? Where does that come from? What allows us to respond correctly versus react in a chaotic manner? Our sages in the Zohar and Tikkunei Zohar have given us the ultimate present in the following teaching. Ready? Besimcha, the word besimcha, who knows over here what the word besimcha means? Who knows the word besimcha?
Yes, with happiness.
With happiness, being in a happy state. Besimcha is the same letters, an anagram of the word machshava, mindset. Our sages taught us thousands of years ago that all we really need in order to be happy is a healthy mindset, a correct mindset. If you have a correct mindset, then wherever you are in life, whatever you have or don't have, you're going to be happy. That's what it is. But you see, if a person doesn't have the correct mindset, they'll be chasing shadows their entire life. Because the happiness is internal. It's not event driven. It's not about what happens as much as how you respond to what happens. What was that philosophy we learned a few weeks ago? I learned it in coaching class. People don't react or respond to the event that happens, but how they perceive the event that happened. It's in our mind. It's really in our mind. Nothing, remember this, young ladies, young men, nothing will ever make you happy. No one will ever make you happy. Not your parents, not your siblings, not your spouses, not your friends, not your job, not your careers. No one. The only one that's responsible for your happiness is you. And if you work on having a correct mindset, then life in itself will be amazing. And you always walk around saying, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, thank you, God." Whether things seem to work out or not, Baruch Hashem, you place me, what do I do about it? As we said before, Al tikra lama ela lama. Don't say why, but for what? What do I do? A person who doesn't have the correct mindset, a person who has a cloudy mindset, is constantly looking to blame, to shame, to shift responsibility. They're always looking for what's wrong, what's not going right. So again, happiness is not event-driven, not people-oriented. It's about ourselves. Therefore, if you look at your list, your initial list of what do you need in order to be happy, in reality, only a healthy mindset. If you have a healthy mindset, then you will make sure that no matter what's happening in your family, you will try your best to respond to it correctly. Your job isn't going correctly? Well, again, as we spoke about many times before, we don't have control over the variables in our lives, but we certainly have the ability to respond correctly to the variables in our lives. We have to make decisions of how we're going to deal with it, what are we going to do about it, or who are we going to speak about it. But that's what happiness really is. If I know that I'm doing the best I can, and I'm trying to maneuver, and I'm dealing with things, I will feel happy. I won't feel joyful. Joy is a spike upwards. When I resolved an issue, I feel good. But happiness is much more subtle. Of course, happiness, as we're going to see later on, breaks through all the boundaries, allows you to break through your own inhibitions, allow you to reveal your inner talents, versus depression, which closes you off, which creates boundaries around you. There's a lot to be said. We'll be speaking about it in the happiness course, the 6-week course that we're going to start in Sukkot. This is just a gist. Yeah.
What's the difference between being happy and being positive?
Positive. There's a whole entire, and you're learning it from Rabbeinu Bachim Shabbatachim. There's a whole talk that we'll deal with this probably either the next week or the week about trust and being positive. I don't want to answer on one foot because it's so fundamental to us. It is a life changer. It is a life changer, and it comes from or either comes from having faith or trust in Hashem, and we need to analyze both of them. Hold that question. We'll touch upon it and answer it in the next coming weeks. But write it down so we won't forget. All right. So until now, we've defined happiness. We've explained where it comes from, sort of. We haven't gotten to the depth, but again, this is just a surface class. The good news is, there's a very famous anecdote, a very famous joke. A rabbi comes to his congregation and says, I got good news and bad news. The good news is, the good news is, I found the money for the expansion of our shul. Everybody's happy. The bad news, it's in your pockets. The good news is we know where happiness is. It's in you. The bad news, or the harder news is, it's you. You can't blame anybody anymore for it. You can never look at anyone and says, I'm not happy because of you. You can never look at any given situation and say, I'm not happy because what's happening here. You're not happy, what are you doing about it? Oh, you want to sweep it under the rug. You want to run away from it. Really. As though that's going to really resolve your life. As though everything's going to be fine right afterwards. As though you're not going to find something else to get yourself into. What did Yonah and the whale? What does it says? From Hashem he's running away. Hashem gave him a mission and says, no, I can't do it. So he thought he's going to run into the ocean. It's you. It's in you. No one is ever going to do for you what you can do for yourself. And if you're looking for someone else, there's a very famous Vort, Hasidic teaching from Reb Mendel Futerfas. Mendel Futerfas, Verbrengen once said, one of the Kozakim, the Kozakim used to be a very cruel species of you could call them human being, if you want to be charitable. They were avid horse riders, cruel human beings, to say that's an understatement, and avid drinkers. Once a Kozak got so drunk that he passed out right off his horse. One night he drank so much that he got so drunk that he passed out right off his horse, fell plop right on the ground. Next morning he wakes up, gets back on the horse, goes to the local tavern, the local bar. He comes in there, it stinks like poop over here. Starts looking at everybody. What's the matter? Don't you clean up over here? He goes back home. He starts screaming at his wife. What's the matter? It stinks here. What are you doing all day? Sees his friends and says, Oi, you need to take a shower. You stink like poop. His friend looks at him and says, oh, hold on. you realize you have some poop underneath on your mustache. What happened? The night before, when he got drunk, he passed out right at the horse dung. And I love the horse dung got stuck underneath his nose.
Rose-colored glasses.
And then everywhere he went, it starts stinking like poop. Most of the times, it's us. You know, it's not you, it's me. It's an understatement. Everyone needs to take full responsibility for the situation. There are no bystanders here. So here's the dilemma. Happiness is inside of us. If we look to our spouses to make us happy, we're looking in the wrong direction. You know that famous song, "Looking for love in all the wrong places"? Yeah. So, to complicate matters a little bit more, as though they weren't complicated enough, neurologists have identified one more little problem, a little, what's that called? A little glitch, if you will, towards happiness. Now, I showed this to a million, exaggeration, a million times over. People saw this 4 or 5 times, but you're going to see it 5 times and still do the same thing. I'm going to show you something, and I want you all to look at it for 5 seconds and write down what you see. Ready? Don't say it. Right here. Just look at it for 5 seconds. Tell me what you see. Those of you at home, tell me what you see. You wrote it down?
Oh, sure, right there.
Yes. The 5-second rule. Yes.
Emptiness.
Emptiness. Oh, that's existential. That's a whole other time to class by itself.
She's my deep child.
See a void in human existence, the existential void of lack of meaning or purpose.
She doesn't say family for happiness, so.
Okay,
Give her credit,
Hashem,
give her
yes.
credit.
No, that's very deep. Yes.
I see a bird's nest.
A bird's nest, all right? I see. I didn't know I'm not that great of an artist. I will sign this later on. Anybody wants? I'm selling this tonight. Copies will take a few weeks. And an eye. Okay, an eye. Gabriella?
I just see like a dot.
A dot. And Mr. Sharbani? An eye. Very good. Rebison.
I
Also
also see.
saw an eye. Okay.
Now I see the eye.
You see the eye as well now.
I see a very little light at the end of the dark tunnel.
Oh, wow. Kabbalah is brought into this. Beautiful. The advantage of light that stems from darkness. Beautiful.
But your dot is fabulous. You guys
Yes.
do a good dot.
Listen,
Look at all
This-
the interpretations
what's
you
that?
got
What's
for your
that?
dot.
What's those
How we all
artists?
interpret our
Those
happiness.
artists?
Huh?
Yeah, just put it over here. You can
Right.
frame it. Yeah.
Just sign it.
A
Just
black
sign it.
hole.
A black hole.
Orly, come
It's
on.
getting deeper and deeper.
First it's emptiness, now it's a black hole.
What to do with you?
Yeah, the black hole, a void. Here is the dilemma of being happy. This is really the dilemma of why we're not happy. We said that happiness is a mindset. Besimcha is machshava. Here is a dilemma to our happiness. This is a glitch. Neurologists, psychologists identify this as called the negativity bias. It's a big word, 2 words, negativity bias. This is why we find it so difficult to be happy, because of this dot. Now, those of you who've seen this experiment out there, and I know I've shown it several times already, Baruch Hashem, but as many times as you see it, you still are drawn to the same conclusion, at least initially, and then you could re-describe it in your mind. The fact is, I'm holding up a whole piece of paper And in the middle of this paper, there's a slight dot. But in reality, there's an entire paper here. A whole white. And in the middle, there's a little darkness. Where do our eyes gravitate to immediately? First to the darkness. We'll always notice what's wrong before we'll notice what's right. Nobody says, I see a whole paper, and by the way, there's a small little dot in there.
What's wrong with this picture?
We'll always notice what's wrong before we'll notice what's right. Called the negativity bias. See, that's really the dilemma here. Because our minds are always going to be drawn to the anomaly, to what's wrong. There, you have a whole bunch of smiling people. You'll go to immediately zero onto one person's frowning. You had a great day, but your friend said one wrong thing. That's it. The night's gone. It's all done. We had a great day, but he said this to me. Ugh, it's gone. It's finished. Negativity bias. Noticing the anomaly, noticing what's wrong before we notice what's right. Because of this, and again, we have this most probably because our animal soul is programmed for self-perseverance. Our mind is already telling us what could go wrong potentially in any given situation, so we won't get hurt. But because of this, we always realize what's wrong before we realize what's right. That goes on our marriages. That goes on about first and foremost ourselves. Our careers, our children, our friends will always notice what's wrong before we notice what's right. Yes.
So are you saying that we're living in fear? Like if we're noticing what's like going to go wrong first, and that triggers like, let's say, all of your fears. Like, oh, if I go up on that like ropes course that you went on, and what if the thing breaks when I'm in the middle?
Right.
You know? So you're
Right.
thinking
If I
of all
get
the wrong.
stuck.
What if
So
I
then-
get stuck
so
in
then
all
you
these?
become fearful, and then you can't move forward.
Right.
So
we tell ourselves-
people are going.
So
moving
because
forward
this
with fear.
small
Instead of
little
thinking that would
thing,
be fun to walk on.
because this small little thing, this doesn't matter anymore. For example, you want to go on a job interview, and you say, but what if I'm going to hear no? What if they're going to reject me? I'd much rather not go. So you're basically living in your own no. You've already decided no. This, in fact, is your entire paper now. Because you might go and you actually get it. But no, I'd much rather hold on to this. This feels safe. This is what I know. I always go back to this. The negativity bias. Coupled together with a very interesting phenomenon called attentive blindness. Ever heard of attentive blindness? It's a crazy, crazy experiment. I saw this in 1999. I was watching it on the internet, and when I watched it, I had to reset my internet to make sure that I'm watching it correctly. I'm not watching the same video. I'm watching the same video. What is it? What's that called? Not a patient. No, what's that called when the experiment is being done on this person? What's that called?
Special.
The testing. I don't know. The person.
Test dummy.
The person was put in front of a television screen, and a tape was the moderator, the guy
Moderator.
the moderator is going to press play. He says, "Look, you're going to see two groups on this tape. You're going to see two groups. One group in all white, dressed from white from head to toe, and another group is dressed all black from head to toe." Each group is crisscrossing themselves. A group in white is crisscrossing themselves. A group in black is crisscrossing themselves. Each group is passing a ball amongst themselves. I'm going to press play, the moderator says to the test patient, whatever it is, and he tells them, I want you to focus on the group in white and see how many times do they pass a basketball amongst themselves. Now it's almost like playing three-card Monte, you know, that one like that, right? You have to be so focused, and I thought that's the experiment. I thought that's it. You have to be so focused and not to be distracted by anything there, because there's so much things happening. There's a group in black and a group in white, but they're crisscrossing. All right. I'm looking at this ball, and I'm counting. One time it passes the hands, two times, and they keep crisscrossing. About 30 seconds. At the end, the moderator press stops and asks the guy, "No, how many times?" He says 14 times, which is, I think, the correct number. Then the real experiment begins. He says, "And what else did you see?" What do you mean? I didn't see anything. I saw the group in white transferring the ball amongst themselves 14 times. He says, "Yeah, but what else did you see?" So now he presses play again, and this is when I had to reset my browser, because when I saw it the second time, I was positive it couldn't be the same video because I was staring at this video. We reset the video again, and I was positive it's a different video. Within 10 seconds, whatever it is, of the video starting, and you are again focusing on the group of white, there's a man in a gorilla suit who walks right in front of the group in white, stands right in front of them, starts doing a whole dance. I'm not kidding. And then he saunters, literally just saunters. He walks so slowly away, he actually occupies mid-screen for a good amount of time. And you didn't see him at all. How is it possible? It's called attentive blindness. You become so focused on one particular detail and everything else melts away as though it doesn't exist.
I had to watch Joyce too.
You can actually watch this on YouTube. This is what happens when we become so focused on this, all this doesn't matter anymore. You won't notice what's right in your life when all you know focusing is on what's wrong in your life.
Commonly used in marketing.
I want a brownie.
That's the dilemma for being happy.
No. I don't want a dog. Brownie. You open them. You can open them. I don't want a brownie.
So when we start noticing in our own lives, when we start looking at our lives, and I do this a lot. This is a secondary thing. It's a secondary part, but it's a very famous question. How great is your life right now? How great is your life? How amazing is your life? How great are you? I did this in high schools, I did this in middle school, I did this in senior citizens with business people. People have a generally hard time finding the goodness inside of themselves. Most people find their problems much more easily and readily than what works by them. So of course I'm not going to be happy with myself. I know what's wrong with me. Of course I'm not going to be happy with my family. I know what's wrong with my family. I know the dysfunction. Of course I'm not going to be happy with my work. I know what's wrong with it. Of course the world's messed up. See, here it is. When we focus on this, all this doesn't matter anymore. This is a dilemma for happiness. See, even, and here's an interesting thing. I've done this seminar, about 6-7 times so far. And those who took the seminar again, of course, they're, "Oh, Rabbi, could I tell you? You're holding a piece of paper, and there's a dot in the middle, but it's only a small dot." And then I ask him, "But tell me the truth. Where did your eyes go first?" Your eyes went to the dot first. And then you had to redefine, "Yeah, but it's in a paper." That's what we're only know. So it explained that if we're going to be happy, it's going to be despite this. It's going to be despite the negativity bias. We're going to have to work against it. We're going to have to work harder on ourselves to be able to notice all this. When we notice all this and we see how truly powerful we are, then we can say, "All right, what can I do about this? What needs to be done about this?" And this will produce the happiness that we spoke about. Or at least will allow you to start moving forward and not feeling stuck. But if all you notice this and all this doesn't matter anymore, so you'll literally tear all apart, and all you'll be holding on to one small black dot. Yeah.
So happiness is like choosing your own path.
Happiness requires you to be able to move forward in the path that you're on, consciously asking yourself, what do I do now? This might not be exactly how I want it to be. Well, what needs to be done right now? What are my options? What could I do right now? Who do I speak to? What needs to be done? Rather than saying, oh no, you see it's all broken. It's all broken because this is already happening. I already have this stain in my marriage. I already have this stain in my life. No, it's not worth it. Throw it away. I'll be holding on to this black dot rather than saying, but look how much goodness we have. And how much I have to work with. How many resources I have. It's a mindset. But it's your mindset. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm going to give you a small experiment. Let's just show you. We're not going to define positive this time, because that's beyond the scope. We have to get into understanding bitachon and faith to understand what positive really is in the organic sense. But I'm going to show you something very, very small in our own lives. I'm going to divide you up. I'm going to give you two questions. Same question, just reverse. Suppose I was a doctor and you came to me and I said, you know what, you came just in the right date. I was given an experimental drug that if taken, there is a 70% chance that you'll never be sick again. You'll never be sick for the rest of your life ever again. Not flu and nothing beyond that. 70% chance of never being sick again. How many of you would take it? Write it down. How many of you would take this drug?
What was the other percentage?
70% odds that you'll never be sick again upon taking this drug.
What's like the unpositive? Like,
Hold on, I didn't get there yet. Based on the 70%, how many of you say, okay? Or not. Whatever it is, just write whatever you think. All right. Then, great question you ask. And what's a 30? It's okay, there are symptoms. There are 30%, and 3 out of 10 show symptoms anywhere from common headaches to, God forbid, internal bleeding. God forbid, other things. You ever looked at the back of Tylenol? I remember once in my class when I was in school, our teacher showed us the back of Tylenol, the warning, without telling us what exactly it is. It looked like somebody was feeding us radioactive rat poison. you could melt inside of yourself. But it's a Tylenol. So okay, 30%. Anyone would change it? If you could change it based on the 30%, please let me know.
Or you could just stay the way you are and take your chance.
Yeah,
that
now hold
maybe-
on one second.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Now, let's reverse it. Come to me with a common cold, and I said you came right on time. By Shgach HaPratis, I was given an experimental drug that might cure you for the rest of your life from any diseases, but I must warn you that there's 30% chance of symptoms occurring, anything from a common headache to others, and leave it at that. How many of you would take it based on that offer? Write it down. Again, when you came to me, originally, I would emphasize 30% chance that, God forbid, symptoms will arise. How many of you would take it?
Same the first question?
Second time.
After you know the symptom.
After I emphasized the 30% initially.
Like I said no the first time, and then no
Okay.
the second time.
Now, how about if I tell you, by the way, there's a 70% chance you'll never get sick again, ever. Would you take it? Who initially, in the first example, said they will take it? Who here said initially they would take it? Based on 70% success rate.
Consider it
You consider it?
for just a second. I
For a
consider it.
second. You like played it safe-ish in your mind.
You know, you know, if it was a more like serious condition, God forbid.
This
No.
would ward off any condition for the rest of your life.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying, I'm good the way I
think
am. That's
about
fine.
it, but like, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't.
So it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting.
It's too big of a risk.
Okay, so it's a very interesting. This is based on a whole experiment. If a person is naturally positive, when they hear 70%, they're be inclined to taking it. If they hear the 30% being emphasized, they might climb downwards. They might resist taking it. They might say no. That's if a person is positive to begin with. If a person is negative to begin with, and they hear 30%, there's no way I'm taking it. No way I'm taking it. So even if you're positive by nature, there's a chance of falling downwards. How much more so if you're not positive by nature? And what is it? Again, this. But I see this blotch. I want to base my entire answer based on this one blotch. Oh, it's only a tiny blotch? I don't care. I'll play it safe. I won't be happy, but I feel I'll be safe. We do this to ourselves all the time. We do this to ourselves. And this is even if we're positive by nature. It is easy to fall if you're positive by nature. I'm sorry. It is feasible to fall if you're happy and positive by nature. How much more? But it's so much harder to climb when you're negative. Even if you're 30 and you already made up your mind and I told you, no, there's 70%. You lost me at 30. It's called the negativity bias. The way our brains work is that we get so reactive to bad news, to bad occurrences. Our brain is stimulated like a New Year's party at midnight. We're so prone, somebody tells you bad news. Why do you think all the news today is only about bad things? When's the last time you heard so-and-so picked up somebody in the street with a car and gave him a ride? Somebody's marriage is actually working out. Where do you hear that? You know why it doesn't sell? You know why? Because people are so much more excited about negative.
Obsessed with tragedy.
It's the negativity bias. It confirms what we already. Of course, there's also confirmation bias. Then everything I know, we're already going to just come into this. You see, I knew he was like this. You see, I knew she was like this. That's it. We have confirmation bias. Aside from the kind of negativity bias, we have confirmation bias. So now, no matter what I tell you, tell me, no, I know what I saw, and now I could piece it together, and you see, it confirmed what I already know that something's wrong. Now you want to tell me otherwise. I don't want to listen to you. You're showing me other odds. I don't care. I already know. I have a picture in my mind, and I'm playing it. This is the only thing that matters for me. It's very interesting. After the Rebbe had his heart attack in 1977, had a very on Shmini Atzeret, the Rebbe had a major heart attack. It's a whole miracle story by itself. And then I heard he had other heart attacks afterwards. The Rebbe stayed in 770, where they brought the top cardiologist, the top cardiologist came and treated the Rebbe. When the Rebbe was about to be released from immediate care, The doctor warned him, Rebbe, you should know that according to our findings, if you resume the same busy schedule that you had before, there's a 25% chance that you're going to have another heart attack. In other words, they were trying to warn the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, okay. So he said, but you understand you understand what we said? He says, yes. You told me that if I resume back my old workload, there's a 75% chance I'll be healthy. It depends how we view the world, how we view our personal world.
Rose colored glasses.
So, if we're going to be happy, it's going to be an avodah. It's literally an avodah. Anybody heard the word avodah here before? You heard the word avodah? What does avodah mean?
Means to do something good.
To work.
But yeah.
To work. To toil.
I
Interesting, the word avodah comes from the word la'abed orot, to tan hides. You know how leather is made? You know what leather is made out of? What is leather made out of? Gabriella, do you know what leather is made out of? What? What part of the animal?
Skin.
The skin. You know what happens if an animal is slaughtered and the skin is just allowed to just stand on the ground? What's going to happen to the skin? What's going to happen to the skin if it's just let go? It becomes rotten. It becomes disgusting. Avodah means to take something which naturally becomes disgusting, naturally goes the other direction, and work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it until it becomes usable, functional, and eventually even holy. As we know that leather, that parchment for Torah, parchment for the mezuzah, comes from leather, from animal hides. So if we're going to be happy, it's going to require avodah. Happiness does not come natural. Because even if you're naturally positive, it's very easy to fall back. It's very easy to lose yourself in your own negativity bias. And that's even if you're positive. How much more so if a person by nature is negative? Either way, if you're negative by nature or you're positive by nature, you're going to have to work in order to be happy. It's not going to come simple to you. There lies a Western culture's problem. We substitute genuine happiness with material welfare. We think if we're going to have more, we're going to be happier. So a person who has a void in their life, rather than dealing with the void, they think if I buy another car, if I go on another vacation, if I buy nicer sneakers. Look at this. I don't understand the need for constant new sneakers in this generation. I don't. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, in the projects, and I remember that was the biggest thing. You had the Ewings, you had the Air Jordans, and all those, right? The Filas, the Phils. It looked like a Phils. Everybody needed the newest sneaker. Everybody needed the newest phone. Everybody needed it. Why? It's a way. What's that called?
They bring joy.
It's because if I'm not happy, I think if I'm going to bring something else into my life, it's going to make me happy.
Marketing.
So if I'm not happy, I should get married, and my wife will make you happy. My husband will make me happy. Which is, God forbid, that's a recipe for disaster. So if you're going to be happy, you're going to have to work. And the harder you work at being happy, well, what's the work? The work is responding to your life. That's the work. The work begins when we stop shaming, blaming, throwing off responsibility. That's the work. It's not simple because it's work because it doesn't come natural to us. What comes natural is if something goes wrong, immediately find who's responsible for it. Immediately try to find the source of that smell of dung. And it really comes from us. When we get unhappy, when things are not going right, we immediately want to scream, be sad, escape, whatever the method is, whatever the animal soul is, as we spoke about 2 weeks ago. Whatever the natural, with the nature, the element of your animal soul, that's where you go. Fire, water, earth, or wind. Do you become cynical? Do you close off? Do you depress? Do you start escaping into the world of escape? Do you look for pleasures outside? Whatever. Everybody has their animal. But it doesn't make you happy. You're going to come back to a much more catastrophe of a world. So, I think we might call it a night over here, part 1. But we did
Now you're happy with.
yeah. Here's your homework. Next week, we're going to delve, Mir Hashem. Next week we're going to delve into 12 seconds, because in reality, happiness only takes 12 seconds to achieve a happy mindset. 12 seconds. It takes 12 seconds to rewrite your mind. To allow neural connections that will make you happy. 12 seconds, that's all it takes. We'll discuss those 12 seconds, yeah.
I just want to share something, I don't know what it was, I think it was a month ago. My mom and me were driving somewhere and near the hospital, and then she saw 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth in the clouds. And then she sent it to my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, and they all saw the same exact thing. So she thought it was Hashem looking at us, and she posted it on Facebook. And everyone saw it.
Baruch Hashem, Hashem is always with us, and Hashem is always looking at us, and sometimes He sends us signs, Baruch Hashem. We should know that wherever we are, Hashem is always with us. No matter where we are in our lives. No matter where we are in the world, Hashem is always happy and is always with us. And sometimes He sends us signs. Here's your homework. Here's really your homework. I want you to make a list of all the things that are good in your life right now. Make a list. All the things that are good in your life. That's your homework. Struggle with that list. I want you to, it's called to juice it, to milk it. There is no number. If you have 4 things, you have 1,000,000 things, whatever, there's no number here. All the things that are good in your life. I want you to keep it. Keep this. Hang it. Look at it on a daily basis. To remind yourself. That this only occupies a very small percent in your life, while you have all this. And the more you notice this, the better equipped you are to dealing with this. But if all you notice is this, and this doesn't even matter anymore. It's like, I'll give you an example. If you have a great night, as we said before, and at the last moment your friend said something nasty, what are you going to remember about the night? What are you going to remember about the night, yeah? That's it. That's all we're gonna
You
notice.
see a positive thought brings you up a little bit. A negative one brings you down tremendously.
Right, because so here, think about this. If they said don't dwell on the negative, why? Because it'll start tainting the way you think. It's so much more. It's so important to dwell on the positive then, and to make every advance and every single attempt at finding the positive things in our lives, and literally and acknowledging them and being thankful for them. And we'll discuss the greatest talent in order to allow a happy mindset, the 12 seconds that will reshape our mind and our mindset and allow us to be happy next week. Any questions? On Facebook, if there are any questions, please private message me. I'll be more than happy to discuss it. Tonight's class is dedicated in honor of the complete recovery of my father, Sheikh Mordechai Yonatan Ben Tamar, who needs, Baruch Hashem, a great refuah. And Baruch Hashem, I'm here largely because he taught me as a kid never to remain still while you could be helping and making a difference in the world. So in that merit, you should have a refuah shlema. And Baruch Hashem, all of these children today are busy with the Rebbe's work on one capacity or another.
Say his name again.
Mordechai Yonatan Ben Tamar. If everyone could do one mitzvah in his honor, and think one good thought, say a prayer, a chapter of Tehillim, it's very important. Yes. Mordechai Yonatan Ben Tamar. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions? Make sense? Doesn't make sense? More Jen?
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Think about what would happen if we looked at the children, at our spouses, at our classrooms through this lens rather than this. Good evening. Shana Tova Matuka.
Amen.
Shana Tova.